The television courtroom fell into absolute silence when corporate executive Amanda Sterling said 5 words that would destroy her entire career. "I'm too rich for rules." She looked Judge Judy Hub directly in the eye with a smirk that screamed decades of never hearing the word no, completely unaware that America's toughest judge had spent 72 hours building a case that would expose her as not just arrogant, but criminally negligent. What happened in the next 18 minutes wasn't just a legal ruling. It was a systematic demolition of everything Amanda Sterling believed about herself, her wealth, and her place in society. By the time Judge Judy finished with her, Amanda would lose her $200,000 a year executive position, face criminal charges that would send her to jail, and become the most hated woman on the internet with over 50 million people watching her complete humiliation. Before we show you the exact moment when Amanda's arrogance destroyed her entire life, you need to understand something critical. This wasn't just about one traffic ticket or one moment of disrespect. This was about a pattern of behavior so dangerous, so entitled, so completely disconnected from reality that it had been putting innocent lives at risk for years. And Judge Judy had the receipts. Every violation, every threat, every social media post where Amanda bragged about being untouchable. Hit that subscribe button right now if you believe wealth should never exempt anyone from accountability, and smash that like button because what Judge Judy reveals about Amanda's pattern of illegal behavior will absolutely shock you to your core. Trust me, the next 26 minutes will restore your faith that justice still exists for people who think their bank account makes them immune to consequences. Amanda Sterling was exactly the kind of person who made regular people's blood boil. At 44 years old, she had spent her entire adult life insulated from consequences by a toxic combination of inherited wealth and corporate power. As Chief Operating Officer of Sterling Capital Management, a firm that managed investments for ultra-wealthy clients, Amanda pulled in a base salary of $400,000 annually, plus bonuses that frequently pushed her total compensation past $700,000. But the real money came from her family. Her grandfather had founded a regional banking empire, and when he died, Amanda inherited a trust fund worth approximately $18 million. She drove a Mercedes G-Wagon with custom modifications that cost more than most people's homes. Her daily uniform consisted of custom Armani suits, Cartier watches that cost $40,000, and Hermes briefcases that required year-long waiting lists. Everything about Amanda Sterling screamed money, power, and the absolute certainty that rules were suggestions for lesser people. What made Amanda truly dangerous wasn't just her wealth. It was her absolute conviction that her success gave her special privileges that ordinary people didn't deserve. She had spent 20 years cultivating an image as someone who got things done, who didn't let obstacles slow her down, who operated on a different level than everyone else. In boardrooms, this aggressive confidence had served her well. She closed deals, managed portfolios, and climbed the corporate ladder by being the person who refused to accept no as an answer. But Amanda had made a fatal mistake that millions of entitled people make. She had confused professional aggression with actual immunity from law. She genuinely believed that because she managed $40 million deals and sat on corporate boards, traffic laws were optional guidelines that didn't apply to people at her level. The incident that brought Amanda Sterling to Judge Judy's courtroom happened on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:20 p.m. Amanda was driving her Mercedes G-Wagon through a residential neighborhood, racing to make a meeting across town. She was already running late because her previous lunch meeting had gone long, and in Amanda's world, being late was unacceptable. It showed weakness. It suggested you weren't in control. So when she saw the speed limit signs dropping from 45 to 35 as she entered a school zone, Amanda didn't slow down. She accelerated. Her luxury SUV, which cost $130,000 and could go from 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, roared through the residential streets at 89 miles per hour. Nearly 90 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour school zone at exactly the time when children were being dismissed from class. Traffic cameras captured everything. Amanda's Mercedes blowing through the first red light without even tapping the brakes. Parents grabbing their children and pulling them back from crosswalks as her vehicle screamed past. A crossing guard named Maria Santos diving out of the way, pulling 3 elementary school students with her, all of them hitting the pavement hard as Amanda's SUV missed them by less than 4 feet. The cameras caught Amanda running a second red light 3 blocks later, still accelerating, still completely focused on making her meeting on time. And they caught the moment when Officer David Martinez, a 15-year veteran of the police force and father of 2 elementary school children himself, activated his lights and began pursuit of the most reckless driver he had encountered in his entire career. Officer David Martinez had seen a lot in his 15 years on the force, But the traffic stop that afternoon would test every ounce of his professionalism and patience. When he finally got Amanda Sterling to pull over, nearly 2 miles from the school zone where she had almost killed children, his hands were shaking with a combination of adrenaline and controlled fury. He had children of his own. He knew exactly how close those kids had come to never going home. As he approached the driver's side window of the Mercedes G-Wagon, he was prepared for excuses, maybe some tears, perhaps an apology. What he got instead was something he would never forget. Amanda Sterling didn't roll down her window immediately. She made him wait while she finished a phone call, her finger held up in a wait gesture like he was an assistant interrupting an important meeting. When she finally lowered the window, her first words weren't an apology or an explanation. They were 4 words that Officer Martinez had heard before from entitled drivers, but never delivered with such pure contempt. "Do you know who I am?" Officer Martinez maintained his professional composure as he explained why he had pulled her over. 89 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour school zone. Running 2 red lights. Nearly striking a crossing guard and 3 children. Each violation was serious on its own, but combined they painted a picture of someone who had complete disregard for human life. Amanda's response was to laugh. Not a nervous laugh or an embarrassed laugh, but a dismissive laugh that suggested the very idea of her being held accountable was absurd. "Officer, I think you're confused about the situation here. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Sterling Capital Management. I manage portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I was on my way to close a deal that affects the retirement accounts of thousands of people. Whatever you think happened, I'm sure we can handle this reasonably." Officer Martinez asked for her license and registration. Amanda sighed dramatically, making it clear that complying with this basic request was beneath her dignity. As she pulled out her wallet, she made a phone call. Not to a family member or a friend, but to her attorney. She put the call on speaker, apparently wanting Officer Martinez to hear her lawyer immediately threatening legal action if the officer didn't exercise discretion. The attorney, whose voice dripped with the same entitlement as his client, suggested that perhaps Officer Martinez didn't understand the consequences of inconveniencing someone of Miss Sterling's stature. The implication was crystal clear. Back off or face problems you can't imagine. But Officer Martinez didn't back off. He asked Amanda to step out of the vehicle because he smelled alcohol. Amanda's reaction was immediate and explosive. She refused, claiming harassment, demanding his badge number, threatening to call his supervisor. She recorded him on her phone, narrating for her video about how she was being targeted by an overzealous officer who was clearly trying to make an example of a successful woman. When Officer Martinez calmly explained that he was required to administer a breathalyzer test based on the smell of alcohol and her reckless driving, Amanda finally complied, but only after making him wait another 15 minutes while she argued with him, berated him, and made it absolutely clear that she considered him far beneath her station in life. The breathalyzer showed .06, just below the legal limit of .08, but concerning given that it was 3:30 in the afternoon and she had been driving through a school zone at nearly 90 miles per hour. Officer Martinez issued citations for reckless driving, excessive speed in a school zone, and running 2 red lights. The total fines would be approximately $3,000, significant for most people but barely noticeable to someone of Amanda's wealth. As he handed her the citations, Amanda looked him directly in the eye and said something that would become crucial evidence in the case to come. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career. I'm going to have your badge and your pension. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have lawyers who eat people like you for breakfast. By tomorrow you'll be directing traffic in a parking lot if you're lucky enough to still have a job." Officer Martinez documented everything in his report. The threats, the behavior, the smell of alcohol, the near miss with children. He included statements from witnesses, including the crossing guard Maria Santos, who described how she had to physically pull children out of the path of Amanda's vehicle. He attached the traffic camera footage that showed everything. And then he filed an official complaint with his department about Amanda's threats, because in his 15 years on the force, he had learned that people who threaten officers usually follow through, and he wanted everything documented in case Amanda Sterling tried to destroy his career the way she had promised. Amanda Sterling didn't just threaten. She launched an immediate campaign to make Officer Martinez's life miserable. Within 24 hours, she had filed a formal complaint with the police department claiming harassment and targeting based on her gender and success. Amanda's complaint to the police department was a masterpiece of manipulation and twisted facts. She claimed that Officer Martinez had profiled her because she was driving an expensive vehicle, that he had been aggressive and threatening during the stop, and that his demand for a breathalyzer test was harassment designed to humiliate a successful businesswoman. She submitted a carefully edited version of her phone video that conveniently cut out her threats and her refusal to comply, showing only the moments where Officer Martinez was firm with her. She had 3 character witnesses, all wealthy friends from her social circle, submit letters attesting to her excellent character and responsible behavior. She painted herself as a victim of an officer who resented successful people and wanted to flex his authority on someone who wouldn't be intimidated. But Amanda didn't stop with the police department complaint. She hired a private investigator to dig into Officer Martinez's background, looking for anything that could be used against him. She wanted dirt. Old complaints, financial problems, relationship issues, anything that could be weaponized to destroy his credibility. The investigator found nothing because Officer Martinez was exactly what he appeared to be, a dedicated officer with a spotless record and a reputation for fairness. But that didn't stop Amanda. She took to social media, posting carefully worded messages that stopped just short of naming Officer Martinez directly but made it clear she had been victimized by overzealous law enforcement. Her posts talked about the harassment successful women face, about officers who target people driving nice cars, about the importance of holding police accountable when they abuse their power. Amanda's social media following was substantial. She had cultivated an image as a successful female executive who broke barriers and refused to be intimidated by anyone. Her posts about the traffic stop resonated with her followers, many of whom were wealthy professionals who had also received traffic tickets and felt victimized by law enforcement. The comments sections filled with support for Amanda and anger at the unnamed officer who had dared to pull her over. Some of her more aggressive followers actually identified Officer Martinez through public records and began leaving negative reviews on police department social media pages, calling for him to be fired. Amanda never explicitly encouraged this harassment, but she didn't discourage it either. She liked and shared several posts that called Officer Martinez out by name. Officer Martinez watched his life become increasingly difficult as Amanda's campaign gained momentum. His department superiors called him in for multiple meetings, asking him to explain the stop in detail, questioning whether he had followed proper procedures. They didn't doubt his account, but they were feeling pressure from above. Amanda Sterling had connections. Her company managed investments for several city council members. Her family had donated generously to political campaigns. People with power were making phone calls, not explicitly asking for the citations to be dismissed, but strongly suggesting that perhaps the situation could be handled more diplomatically. Officer Martinez stood firm. He had done his job correctly. He had documented everything. And he wasn't going to let a wealthy executive bully him into backing down. That's when Officer Martinez made the decision that would ultimately bring Amanda Sterling to Judge Judy's courtroom. He filed a lawsuit against her for defamation and harassment. He sued for $75,000, representing the emotional distress of her campaign against him, the damage to his professional reputation, and the resources he had to spend defending himself against her baseless complaints. His attorney explained that this wasn't really about the money. It was about creating a public record of Amanda's behavior, about standing up to someone who thought wealth made them untouchable, about sending a message that threatening police officers had consequences. The lawsuit gained local media attention, and that's when Judge Judy's producers noticed the case. Judge Judy Shinlin had built her legendary television career on cases exactly like this. A wealthy entitled person trying to bully someone who couldn't fight back. A clear pattern of abuse of power. A defendant who thought their money made them immune to consequences. When her research team brought her the Amanda Sterling case, Judge Judy spent more time preparing than she had for any case in recent memory. This wasn't just about one traffic stop or one harassment campaign. This was about making an example that would resonate far beyond her courtroom. She assigned her entire research team to dig into every aspect of Amanda Sterling's life, her driving record, her professional history, her social media presence, everything. What they uncovered was even worse than Judge Judy had suspected. Amanda Sterling had 11 prior traffic violations over the past 3 years. Every single one had been paid immediately, the maximum fine amount, but Amanda had never appeared in court for any of them. She treated traffic violations like parking tickets, just another business expense to be handled by her assistant. The violations showed a clear pattern of escalating recklessness. Speeding tickets that went from 15 miles over the limit to 25 miles over to 40 miles over. Judge Judy's research team uncovered something even more damaging buried in sealed court records. 5 years earlier, Amanda Sterling had been arrested for driving under the influence with a blood alcohol content of 0.14, nearly double the legal limit. She had been driving her previous luxury vehicle at 70 miles per hour through a residential neighborhood at 2 in the morning when she sideswiped a parked car and kept driving. Police had caught up with her 3 blocks later, and she had failed every field sobriety test. The arrest should have resulted in a criminal conviction, a suspended license, and mandatory alcohol treatment. Instead, Amanda hired a team of expensive attorneys who exploited every technicality in the system. They challenged the traffic stop, questioned the breathalyzer calibration, filed motion after motion until the prosecutor, overwhelmed and underfunded, agreed to a plea deal that reduced the charge to reckless driving. Amanda paid a $50,000 fine, attended an online traffic school, and walked away with no criminal record. The entire case was sealed, hidden from public view, allowing Amanda to continue presenting herself as someone with a spotless record. Judge Judy's team also discovered Amanda's social media history, and what they found was a goldmine of evidence showing her true attitude toward rules and accountability. There were photos of her luxury car's speedometer showing speeds over 100 miles per hour, captioned with laughing emojis. Posts bragging about having lawyers for everything, with comments from friends joking about how Amanda never faced consequences for anything. A particularly damning post from 6 months earlier showed Amanda's Mercedes parked illegally in a disabled parking space. Caption: "Rules are for people without resources." The comments on that post included several people calling her out, to which Amanda had responded that she donated more to charity in a year than most people earned in their lifetime, so she had earned the right to park wherever was convenient. Judge Judy compiled everything into a thick folder marked with Amanda's full legal name. She studied the traffic camera footage of the near miss with children frame by frame. She read Officer Martinez's detailed report multiple times, noting his professionalism and restraint in the face of Amanda's threats. She reviewed the private investigators' reports that Amanda had commissioned, the social media campaign she had launched, and the complaint she had filed with the police department. Judge Judy saw the entire pattern clearly. Amanda Sterling was a predator who had spent years using her wealth as both a weapon and a shield. She endangered people through reckless behavior, then used money and lawyers to escape accountability. And when someone finally stood up to her, she tried to destroy them. The day of the court hearing arrived, and Amanda Sterling entered Judge Judy's courtroom like a CEO walking into a board meeting she expected to dominate. She wore a custom Armani suit in charcoal gray that probably cost $6,000. Her Cartier watch caught the courtroom lights with every gesture. Her Hermes briefcase, the kind that required being on a waiting list for 18 months, swung from her manicured hand like a status symbol weapon. But what really caught everyone's attention was her attitude. She didn't walk into the courtroom. She strutted. She didn't look nervous or humble. She looked annoyed, like this entire proceeding was an inconvenient waste of her valuable time. She brought 3 attorneys with her, an obvious power move designed to intimidate Officer Martinez, who sat at the plaintiff's table with a single lawyer and a folder of documentation. Amanda sat up at the defendant's table like she was preparing for a business presentation. She opened her laptop, arranged her files in neat stacks, and checked her phone multiple times before the bailiff asked her to put it away. Her first words when Judge Judy entered weren't a respectful greeting but a statement. "Let's make this quick, Your Honor. I have a board meeting at 2. The audacity of that opening line sent ripples through the courtroom. The audience members exchanged shocked glances. Even her own attorneys looked uncomfortable. Judge Judy's eyebrows raised slightly, that trademark expression that regular viewers knew meant someone had just made a terrible mistake. But Judge Judy said nothing yet. She simply opened her folder and began reviewing the case details with her characteristic precision. Officer Martinez testified first, his voice steady and professional as he described the traffic stop, Amanda's behavior, her threats, and the subsequent harassment campaign. He presented his evidence methodically, the citations, the traffic camera footage, the witness statements from the crossing guard and parents who had been present. He showed the social media posts where Amanda's followers had identified him and called for his termination. He documented every complaint she had filed, every attempt she had made to damage his career and reputation. Throughout his testimony, Amanda sat with visible impatience, sighing loudly, rolling her eyes, checking her watch repeatedly. Her body language screamed contempt for the entire proceeding. When Judge Judy finally gave Amanda permission to present her defense, Amanda didn't wait for the complete invitation before launching into what she clearly believed would be a winning argument. "Your Honor, this is obviously a case of an officer who couldn't handle being challenged by a successful woman. I was driving to close a $40 million deal that would affect the retirement accounts of thousands of people. Yes, I was going over the speed limit, but context matters. People at my level have different responsibilities. We operate on different timelines. Those traffic laws are designed for average people who have time to follow them. I'm not saying I'm above the law, but there has to be reasonable accommodation for people who contribute significantly to the economy. The courtroom erupted in gasps and whispered disbelief. Even Amanda's attorneys shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing their client had just said something catastrophically stupid on national television. Judge Judy leaned forward, her expression transforming from professional interest to barely controlled fury. So you believe your wealth exempts you from traffic laws? Her voice was dangerously quiet, the calm before a devastating storm. Amanda, incredibly, doubled down on her position, apparently believing she was making a compelling legal argument rather than digging her own grave. I'm saying I'm too rich for rules that don't make sense for people like me. The system should work differently for top earners who actually create value. I contribute more in taxes in 1 year than most people earn in their entire lives. That has to count for something. There should be different standards for different economic levels. It's just common sense. The 5 words "too rich for rules" seemed to hang in the air like a toxic cloud. Judge Judy slowly stood up from her chair, something she rarely did during proceedings, and the symbolism of that gesture was not lost on anyone in the courtroom. Miss Sterling, in 40 years of practicing law, I have encountered some truly despicable people. But you represent something particularly dangerous to a civilized society. You genuinely believe that your bank account gives you the right to endanger children's lives. Judge Judy's voice was rising now, building towards something that everyone could feel would be devastating. Let me show you what your wealth actually bought you. Judge Judy opened her folder with theatrical precision and began presenting evidence like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. She showed the traffic camera footage of Amanda's near miss with children, playing it in slow motion so everyone could see exactly how close those kids came to being killed. She brought up the crossing guard Maria Santos via video testimony, who described in heartbreaking detail how she had nightmares about what would have happened if she had been 1 second slower in pulling those children back. She presented all 11 of Amanda's prior traffic violations, showing the escalating pattern of dangerous behavior. She revealed the sealed DUI case, explaining in detail how Amanda had used expensive lawyers to escape a conviction that would have cost a poor person their license and possibly their job. Then Judge Judy did something that absolutely destroyed Amanda's